Imagine this. You wake up, reach for your phone before your mind even knows it's morning. A pulse of light, a flicker of red icons, and suddenly your thoughts belong to someone else. The scroll begins. Somewhere deep in your skull, a molecule fires, a whisper of reward. You don't even notice it, yet it's there, tugging you forward, promising something just out of reach. That's dopamine. But what began as nature's compass for survival has turned into the invisible leash of modern life. We like to think of ourselves as free, rational beings with purpose. Yet look closer and you'll see how much of your day is dictated by this ancient chemical. Each ping, each like, each fragment of novelty is a tiny bargain with the same circuitry that once drove our ancestors to hunt and mate. The brain, for all its grandeur, still dances to primitive rhythms. Psychologists call dopamine the motivation molecule, the push behind every pursuit. It's what compels the artist to paint, the entrepreneur to risk, the monk to seek enlightenment. But it doesn't give you happiness, it only makes you want. Desire without fulfillment. Chase without arrival. That's the tragic beauty of dopamine. It's endless. Now imagine this same system amplified by algorithms, weaponized by corporations that understand you better than you understand yourself. Every app, every ad, every glowing rectangle in your pocket is designed to keep that molecule dripping, drop by drop. Not enough to satisfy, just enough to keep you hungry. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the modern spirit changes. The soul, once drawn to meaning, depth, and connection, becomes addicted to stimulation. We call it engagement, productivity, entertainment. But beneath those words lies a more unsettling truth. We have replaced transcendence with transaction, presence with performance, stillness with scrolling. You feel it, don't you? That strange anxiety when the dopamine stops. When there's nothing to check, nothing to click, nothing to chase. The silence feels unbearable. You mistake it for boredom, but it's really withdrawal from your own attention. The great question, then, isn't, how do I quit dopamine? That's impossible, it's part of you. The question is deeper, more existential. When every moment is engineered to trigger your brain, can you still claim your spirit as your own? Somewhere inside, the modern human is fighting a quiet war between the chemical pull of pleasure and the forgotten art of being. To understand how dopamine hijacked the modern spirit, you must go back to when it was sacred. Before smartphones, before algorithms, even before language, dopamine was the mind's way of whispering yes. A spark that urged the hunter to keep tracking, the lover to keep reaching, the thinker to keep wondering. It was not the source of happiness but the pulse of pursuit. A divine nudge that said, there's more ahead. Keep going. But then civilization arrived. And with it, abundance. Fire, tools, agriculture, trade, all built by brains wired for scarcity. We evolved to chase what was rare. Food, connection, novelty. Yet now those things are everywhere, infinite and cheap. The same mechanism that once guided survival became overwhelmed by its own success. The seeker's flame turned into a wildfire. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned that when gods die, they leave their shadows. Our modern shadow is dopamine itself, the ghost of divine striving turned mechanical craving. Where once we sought transcendence, now we seek stimulation. Carl Jung might have called it an archetypal inversion. The instinct for meaning has collapsed into the addiction to sensation. Thinkers like Viktor Frankl saw this coming. He described the existential vacuum, the silent despair that fills the soul when purpose is replaced by pleasure. In that vacuum, dopamine becomes a substitute for meaning. It offers the illusion of movement, the sensation of progress, without destination. Each click feels like a step forward, though you remain in the same mental room. The problem isn't dopamine, it's context. Your brain evolved to reward effort before reward, not reward without effort. In nature, the chase came first, then the feast. Now, the feast comes instantly. You can summon novelty in a second, approval in a swipe, intimacy in a message. You no longer have to earn reward through struggle or waiting. So the brain, cheated of its natural rhythm, starts to panic. Eric Fromm called this the marketing orientation, a world where humans treat themselves as commodities, constantly refreshing their image to remain desirable. This endless performance floods the dopamine system. Each post, each validation, each metric becomes a hit of self-worth. But dopamine's language is quantity, not quality. The more you get, the less it means. The threshold keeps rising. And here lies the hidden root of the crisis. You're not addicted to pleasure, you're addicted to potential. Dopamine isn't about satisfaction, it's about anticipation. The modern world has become a casino of anticipation. News feeds, dating apps, endless recommendations, everything built to promise more, never to deliver. When the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard spoke of the sickness unto death, he described despair as the disconnection between the self and its own becoming. Today, that sickness has gone digital. You are no longer the author of your desire, you are the audience. You no longer pursue meaning, you consume it in fragments. And yet, the ancient pulse of dopamine still beats beneath all of this. It hasn't vanished. It's just confused. It still wants you to grow, to move, to seek truth. But it no longer knows where to look. What happens to a spirit when its guiding light becomes its captor? When the instinct to seek is turned against itself? The answer is hidden in the consequences, the quiet corrosion that follows every easy reward. At first, the effects seem harmless. You tell yourself you're just staying connected, catching up, relaxing. But beneath that calm surface, dopamine reshapes the architecture of your mind. It rewires your expectations for how satisfaction should feel, immediate, constant, and effortless. Anything slower begins to taste like failure. In this new rhythm, life itself starts to feel too slow. Real conversations require patience. Books demand attention. Solitude feels heavy. Even joy becomes measured in hits per minute. When every moment must entertain, stillness turns unbearable. You crave the next microburst of stimulation not because it fulfills you, but because the silence between them feels like falling. The brain, flooded with novelty, stops distinguishing between what matters and what doesn't. A notification glows with the same urgency as a cry for help. A meme triggers the same circuitry as a lover's touch. When all signals are amplified, meaning flattens. You become a creature of reaction, living not from intention but impulse. This is how dopamine quietly fragments the self. The mind splinters into short-term selves, each one chasing something new before the last one can reflect. You scroll past your own life. You exist in flickers. Society begins to mirror this inner fragmentation. Attention becomes currency, outrage becomes marketing, and peace becomes a luxury product. Corporations study your cravings like priests of an ancient cult, designing platforms that speak directly to your biochemical language. They don't sell products anymore. They sell dopamine triggers. You pay not with money first, but with moments of your consciousness. And what about meaning? Meaning requires delay, sacrifice, depth, all enemies of instant reward. So we begin to abandon the long game. We trade fulfillment for frictionless pleasure. We avoid struggle, though struggle was once the forge of identity. In time, even self-knowledge becomes difficult. You can't study your reflection if the surface is always rippling. This is the paradox. Never has humanity been so connected, and yet never so internally divided. The collective psyche hums with restlessness. We chase experiences we can no longer feel. We document moments instead of living them. Our joy must be broadcast to seem real. You sense it late at night when the feed finally ends. The glow fades, and a strange emptiness lingers. It isn't sadness, exactly, it's dissonance. The body is buzzing from dopamine, but the soul is starving for meaning. And still, you reach again. The habit is stronger than the hunger for truth. That's the cost of this invisible addiction, the quiet erosion of your will, the gradual dulling of awe. Yet somewhere inside the chaos, a whisper remains. The same dopamine that enslaves you can also awaken you, if you learn to redirect it, to rebel against the easy high, to retrain the mind to find pleasure in patience, purpose, and pain. But that rebellion is costly. It demands awareness, and awareness hurts. Can you endure that pain long enough to become free? To reclaim your spirit, you must first confront a difficult truth. Dopamine isn't evil, it's indifferent. It doesn't care whether you scroll or create, escape or evolve. It's a tool, and tools can liberate or enslave depending on the hand that wields them. The rebellion begins not by quitting dopamine, but by learning to guide it. You start by slowing down. The mind, long trapped in constant stimulation, trembles at silence. But within that discomfort is a forgotten strength, the ability to sit with hunger without feeding it. When you stop reacting to every spark of desire, you begin to separate the self from the signal. This is the first act of spiritual defiance. You watch the craving, but you don't obey it. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the integration of unconscious drives into conscious will. In that light, dopamine isn't your enemy, it's your shadow. You can't destroy it without destroying yourself. You can only bring it into awareness and teach it to serve meaning rather than impulse. The same energy that once fueled endless distraction can become the force that drives creation, learning, and love. Think of it like taming fire. The same flame that burns can also illuminate. You don't extinguish dopamine, you reshape the environment in which it burns. Delete the endless feed, and you don't just remove temptation, you reclaim time. Replace the instant hit with slow joy, reading, walking, conversation, and you rewire the brain to find reward in effort again. At first, it feels impossible. Your mind screams for the fast fix. That's the withdrawal of attention itself, the ache of a spirit relearning patience. But beneath that ache lies the miracle of neuroplasticity. The brain can change. It can unlearn compulsive pleasure and rediscover intrinsic meaning. Every moment of mindful resistance builds new pathways, turning chaos into clarity. The rebellion is not dramatic, it's quiet, subtle, internal. You won't post it or announce it. You'll feel it in small moments, the way coffee tastes when you aren't scrolling, the peace of an undistracted breath, the satisfaction of finishing a single page. These are sacred victories in the war for your attention. And then something unexpected happens. The dopamine that once pulled you outward begins to pull you inward. Curiosity returns, not for consumption, but for contemplation. The same molecule that fueled addiction now fuels awareness. Pleasure becomes a teacher instead of a master. This rebellion is psychological, yes, but also philosophical. It's a revolt against the tyranny of ease, a rediscovery of effort as sacred. Nietzsche wrote that joy itself is the feeling of power growing, of resistance overcome. To suffer meaningfully is to feel alive again. The age of artificial pleasure doesn't end when the apps disappear. It ends when you stop measuring your worth in dopamine bursts. Freedom is not abstinence but alignment, when your biology serves your spirit, not the other way around. You are not meant to escape desire. You are meant to transcend it. Somewhere between silence and longing, a truth begins to take shape. You realize that dopamine was never the villain. It was the mirror. It showed you what you worship, what you chase, what you fear losing. It revealed how easily meaning becomes confused with momentum. When you slow down enough to see this, the world changes texture. The glow of the screen fades, but light remains, the kind that doesn't demand your attention, only your presence. You begin to feel reward not as a spike, but as a rhythm, the taste of patience, the quiet satisfaction of small, unseen victories. You understand now that dopamine doesn't create happiness, it amplifies direction. Feed it chaos and you spiral. Feed it purpose and you awaken. The molecule itself hasn't changed, you have. You've shifted from being its subject to being its author. The spirit once hijacked begins to steer again. It remembers how to dwell in stillness without fleeing, how to feel pain without running, how to want without worshiping the wanting. You start to see desire as sacred energy, neither good nor bad, but formative. It's the current that shapes your becoming. Philosophers have long known this secret. The Stoics called it temperance, the Buddhists, right intention, Jung, integration. They all pointed to the same horizon, mastery not through suppression, but through harmony. To live freely is not to escape your drives, but to understand them so deeply that they can no longer deceive you. In this awakening, the modern spirit rediscovers its ancient root. The pulse of dopamine becomes the heartbeat of consciousness again, a reminder that you were never meant to numb yourself with pleasure, but to use pleasure as a compass toward depth. The pleasure of learning, the pleasure of serving, the pleasure of simply existing. You see now why silence once frightened you. It was where truth waited. Every distraction was a way of avoiding the mirror. But now, the mirror feels like home. You can stand before it without flinching. This is the quiet revolution of our age, not in deleting the apps, but in reclaiming attention as the most sacred act of will. You can still scroll, still dream, still desire, but now, each act carries intention. Each click becomes a choice. You've taken back the steering wheel from the molecule that once drove you. The spirit, once scattered across screens, gathers itself again, whole, awake, unafraid. And in that stillness, you realize something profound. Dopamine was never the enemy of your soul. It was its echo, calling you home. Thank you for watching, for thinking, and for feeling with us. Every view, every reflection, every quiet moment you spend here helps this community grow in depth, not in noise. Until next time, stay aware, stay human, and keep searching for meaning.